What's up, everybody? Welcome back to God's Got It. I'm really excited today that you're here with us because we're going to be interviewing one of our co-hosts, the other co-host. We're going to be diving in and talking to Molly and hearing from her story and, navigating, where you came from, those moments of crunchiness with
my heart is beating so fast, and when you just said where
Really?
you come from, my brain went, where did you come from, where did you go?
Oh, wow. Okay. This is where we are. This is where we are this morning. Hello. Welcome.
I'm gonna get real awkward.
I can tell. Okay, let's just take a deep breath. It's fine. Yeah. I know it can be a little, like naked baby chicken energy, right? That's my vibe. What I feel like I'm naked and I'm like sharing something very, very vulnerable. I think of a naked baby chicken. Mm. Yeah, right? So yeah. I get it. It's a lot to put yourself out there, but I think it's important if you all are going to be on this journey with us to know a little bit of our hearts and our backstory and where we're coming from, and I think when we share testimonies and let you know our story and our walk, it really normalizes what other people are going through. Yeah. You feel so much less alone, less alone. So let's get into it. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, as ready as you're going to be, right? I think the easiest spot, right, to ease you in with it is just kind of maybe where does your story begin with a relationship? Oh God, your upbringing, feels
when you said, where does your story begin? I'm like, once upon a time, I was born.
I'm starting to notice this is like is this like a defense mechanism, guys? Like she's putting up the little humor giggles.
Oh. Okay. I was born into parents who were brought up very Catholic. We are Irish German. My mom is one of 9. My dad is one of 8, and they were both brought up in Catholic school. And my grandparents on both sides, devout Catholics. So my mom raised us Catholic. I went all the way through religion. She was my religion teacher. In my younger years, I feel like we went to church every Sunday, or most Sundays. It was much more regular. And then as we got older and life got busy and, we had more of an opinion of whether or not we wanted to go, that sort of started to fade away. And I always say that I'm really grateful for the way that it goes both ways. I'm grateful for the way that my parents treated it, in that it was very much like, you're going to go through your sacraments and we're going to raise you with some level of faith. But then when it gets to the point that you are an adult and you can decide for yourself, you get to choose, you get to have an opinion about how you feel about these things. And for me, I went through all of my sacraments. You do your confirmation around 8th grade. So I was 13. And I remember actually really enjoying church those last few years in my preteen years, because they had a preteen service that we would go to, and all my friends from school would be there, and everybody who was going to be making their confirmation. And I remember really enjoying it. But after my confirmation, my connection and the opening that my mom said, you get to do with this what you please now, that connection just sort of fizzled away for me. I became a teenager. It was out of sight, out of mind. There was just no, I don't care anymore. It's boring. I don't care about God. And it fell out of my life.
Okay. So what brought it back? Can you reflect on a time of when you started noticing God peeking back in, or piquing that curiosity?
Only in hindsight can I look at the next 10, 11, 12, 15 years of my life, because it wasn't until my late 20s that I started having a connection to any sense of spirituality again. I can look back in hindsight now and be like, oh yeah, those were godless years, right? I was running amok, drinking, party, drugs, boys, relationship after relationship after relationship, and only, again, in hindsight do I see how much I was seeking to satiate on anything that I could fill up on. And what I was doing was no different than what most late teen, early 20s in modern America were also doing. So I didn't have this feeling that there was anything wrong with any
Right.
of it.
Like nothing's missing here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing out of the ordinary happening here.
Gotcha.
And it wasn't until I graduated from college, got my nursing degree, was working overnights as an ER nurse, had just gotten engaged. It was like engagement into my first year of marriage, that I always say I woke up and felt like the instructions to building my life were over. Like I had done all the things. I got the degree, I got the job, I got the house, I got married. The only thing left to do was have kids, but I felt myself falling into this like depth of despair of like this, wait a second, this is just what we do now every day for the next 60 years. And that was the first time I really started questioning, like, why did I choose the things that I chose? And is this actually what I want my life to look like for the next 60 years? And in that moment, I didn't recognize that I was starting to enter into a spiritual journey. But for the first time ever, I started questioning, like, why did I choose those things? What do I actually want for myself? Who am I? And on top of that, a really big question that I think a lot of people navigate is waking up and having everything you thought you ever wanted, and then being like, but I feel miserable. Like I'm anxious, I'm depressed, I'm empty. But I have all the things that I was taught my entire life to work towards. And I've just been head down, working towards them, being such a good steward of that, right? Just getting the really good grades, doing really well at my job, always being an overachiever, and then waking up and having received what it was I was working towards and feeling really empty.
Powerful. So you mentioned like kind of leaning into a little bit of your spiritual awakening. Mm-hmm. First of all, what does spiritual awakening even mean?
That's a big question.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think so because, okay, for me, it didn't go, there's like levels for me where, okay, first I started just questioning like, why am I so depressed and anxious?
Okay.
And then I started questioning like, why is this the way that our society is operating? Like, why is everybody instructed to like go to school, get a degree, get a job, buy a house, chase these things, right? Like, why is, as a collective, are we operating this way? And then I started diving into natural modalities of helping to heal my anxiety and depression. And that brought me to nervous system healing and breath work through yoga. Yoga was like an entryway for me, but I much more got interested in the deeper philosophical study of how your mind and body are connected to each other and how the emotions that are inside of our body cause an effect on how we feel about the world, and leaning into trauma healing and leaning into nervous system healing. And all of that helped me to begin to understand and get curious about our consciousness and like, what is consciousness, and recognizing like there are billions of people on this planet and every single person is seeing through a different lens and having a different experience. And just diving into the study of like, what is human nature? That was kind of my spiritual awakening, is just like starting to question the why behind what it is that we are just presented life is supposed to be. I feel like is sort of the beginning of a spiritual awakening, but it can happen so differently for different people.
Yeah. I didn't mean to put you on the spot with that question. It's just always, I feel like it's a buzzy term. Mm-hmm. People are always like, oh, like, when did you have your spiritual awakening? And for me, I'm always like, I don't know what that means. But I, similarly to you, I'm just kind of like, I think it's when you start to break free of some of these paradigms that have been taught to us. So I think it's when you start getting a little bit more curious about things. Yeah. And asking those questions like, is this really it for me? Mm-hmm. Like what's the point? What's the, what's like the end game here and all of that.
I think that's a big question that comes up for people of like, what is the point of this?
Dude, I have that conversation with myself at least once a month. I fall into that. I mean, I do, right? Because you find yourself in these cycles of like push and grind and like be successful and do the thing. And you're like, yeah, but like, why?
But why?
But why?
Yeah.
Why am I?
Right. Because at that point in my life, I had, again, everything I was taught to desire to feel fulfilled. My husband and I were making good money. We were living in a nice home. I had just gotten married. And yeah, the why only came up because I got to the finish line and there was really nothing else to seek. And in that, during the period of starting to question, and I'm dealing alongside, like, I'm not just questioning and awakening and feeling so free, I'm questioning and struggling with, like, why am I having panic attacks? Why am I struggling with so much anxiety? Why is it so difficult for me to even just like leave my house and have normal social interaction? And inside of that, alcohol became a really big crutch for me. I found myself going from partying on the weekends, which is something that I did every weekend from the time that I was a teenager, and that was very normalized, to regularly drinking glasses of wine, to regularly drinking bottles of wine. And even that, for a good chunk of my, I'll say like mid-20s, so normalized. So normalized for people to have that feeling of getting home from work and being like, oh, I need a glass of wine right now. And so I didn't question it until my emotional landscape and my mental landscape got to such a place that I was like, something's got it. Like, I'm not okay. I can't live like this.
So powerful. And alcohol is such a tricky one, I feel like, too, because it's so wrapped up in our culture. Everything revolves around like work happy hours, the holidays, everywhere you go, you're just like inundated with this opportunity to turn to something that ultimately is a numbing out for us.
And it's a social lubricant too.
Yeah.
And for me personally, in my experience, I come from a long line of alcoholism on both sides of my family. So I never identified as an alcoholic, but it did become a problem for me. But I think for me also, it's because I had a picture in my head of what an alcoholic was, and I thought it was somebody who was like down and out, couldn't even freaking function because of their dependency on alcohol. And any addiction that we have, it actually lives on a spectrum, right? And we talked about this a little bit in the episode on idols and these things that we can become addicted to, and we can become addicted to anything. And I definitely, at that period of my life, became addicted to that glass of wine as a coping mechanism for the emotions that were starting to bubble up inside of my system that were like, you need to look at us. And I was like, no, I don't.
So what, or I guess how rather, did you, I know you said you kind of landed in a space of like studying nervous system regulation, kind of leaning in a little bit to yoga and like getting really curious. Or how maybe did you land there? Were you like finding people online? Like what got you to that spot?
I would say I had practiced yoga on and off from like my late teens. Like it was just something that there's yoga studios everywhere. So I would go and take a class here and there. When I went to college, they offered classes at the gym, so I would sometimes go to those. And it always created this really beautiful sensation inside of my body. I wouldn't say that I like loved the practice of yoga so much as I loved how connected and centered I felt at the end of a practice. I used to say I literally would go to yoga classes for the 8 minutes you would get at the end of the class to just lay down. And it was the only time in my life that my mind would go clear and I could actually feel surrendered and present.
Wow, I love that so much. Something that's coming up for me, circling back a little bit. So during all of this time that you're navigating, kind of getting curious, how is that relationship dynamic with your family? Or is your family still involved in church, religion, and like what are those dynamics looking like at that point in your life where you really weren't identifying with God, Jesus, doing any of that?
Yeah. I don't know exactly how it happened, but kind of all at the same time, my family unit, my mom, my dad, my brother, we all kind of just fell out of religion together. My brother was definitely much more adamant about vehemently having opposing opinions to things that were going on in the church when we were younger. I mean, that still go on in the church till today, like a lot of controversy and I don't even want to say conspiracy because it's like proven things that were happening inside of the church and not identifying or connecting to some of the more hateful doctrine that was inside of that space. And I related all of that to church, period, right? It wasn't until my adult years that I realized that not all church is Catholic church. And that's not to say that there can't be distortion and manipulation and hatred and judgment inside of other church spaces. But that was my experience inside of church. And as I kind of grew out of it, my whole family grew out of it as well. But a lot of my extended family was still very deeply inside of the church.
That's so interesting. So I can imagine that having this family that's kind of extended family, rather, that's still connected to church, kind of in the religion spirit, like how did that land for them? How did they embrace your new sense of curiosity and where you were landing?
I feel like I internally felt this desire to kind of hide it and like keep it really close to heart, to not really have too many conversations about how I was going off on my own to explore these things. Even in the beginning, like my parents are so loving and so accepting and so on board for anything. They're like, as long as you're happy and healthy, like we're good. And I had this fear of really letting them know how much emotional pain I was in at that point. So when it came to really everybody, I was kind of keeping it really close to heart. But simultaneously, the deeper I went into my exploration and into my awakening, nervous system healing and meditation and all of that became my passion. I was feeling so much healing happening from that it pretty quickly became like I want to help other people with this thing. And then it became kind of hard to hide it, right? Because now I'm publicly speaking about this massive transformation that's happening in my life. But there was only 2 instances around my extended family that anybody had anything to say. And this is so funny, actually, looking back. First, when my husband and I got married, I didn't allow the word God in my ceremony, which is like so crazy for me to admit now. We talk about all the time renewing for our 10-year anniversary and how different it's going to be. But we were much more, we were always connected to something, but at that point it was much more like the universe and higher power, and it didn't go that deep. And I only heard in hindsight that somebody in my extended family the day of my wedding was like, your grandparents would be rolling in their grave. And then as I traversed deeper into my own spiritual exploration, I became certified in yoga. I started using yogic philosophy and energetics as a modality to help people heal through the emotional turmoil inside of their bodies. And at one point I was driving in the car with one of my aunts who has devoted her entire life to the Catholic Church. And she turned to me while we were in the car. She was in the front seat, I was in the back seat. She adjusts the rearview mirror to look me in the eyes from the rearview mirror. We're on a road trip. She's like, so Molly, tell me about this yoga journey that you're on. And I was like, I don't know. I've never really had a connection to God that felt really resonant with me. And I'm just in a place of exploring where it is that I am being led in this moment. And I didn't really have all that much more to say about it other than that. And she was like, well, what is your opinion on salvation? And I was like, I don't even know what that means. And I was just like, I don't know. And she just went, and turned the mirror back and continued driving. And that was the end of the conversation. There was no pressing or pushing from there. One other time, when the family was all together, an uncle of mine came up to me and like grabbed me by the shoulders, looked me in the eyes and was like, Jesus loves you. But at that point I was very resistant. I was resistant to religion. I wasn't completely resistant to Jesus, but I did couple Jesus and religion together, right? And I was just over here on my own exploration journey, and I was finding a lot of healing in that space, right? It quickly evolved for me from, I became a yoga teacher, but I wasn't really drawn to the practice of yoga asana, which is the movement practice. I wasn't really drawn to teaching that. I did it here and there, but for me, I was more interested in the study of the mind-body connection and the philosophy, the deeper history behind yoga, and finding a great deal of healing through my nervous system, right? Part of my testimony is that working with yoga and meditation, and then that connecting to the nervous system and connecting to this deeper healing, is what healed my panic attacks and my anxiety disorder. that stuff took me up and out of that depressive state. So I don't have the same testimony of a lot of people who were like, I started doing yoga and I didn't know what it was doing and it opened all these demonic doors. That was not my experience. Yoga was my entryway that put me on a long path home back to God, right? And my belief is that God guides us in our lives to exactly where we need to be in order to be able to find him, to come back home to him. And that was my entryway.
I love that. And I want to just take a step back here for a moment because I know your story, but when you first started sharing, you were talking about being a nurse, being the travel nurse and stuff, and now you're talking about yoga and stuff. So what happened there in that story?
So I was an ER nurse for 5.5 years, a travel nurse for the last 3 years of that experience, and this is in the height of COVID. So I entered my travel nursing career right before 2020. Okay. And I was already questioning my career choice because I was miserable. I was crying every day going to work. I was praying to get into like a fender bender so that I didn't have to go to work. And then that hits, and that feeling around working in Western medicine exploded for me. I had this inkling at that time, what I now know is the voice of God, the voice of my intuition. I was like, I am meant to help people heal on a deeper level. I'm meant to help people heal on a deeper level. And I didn't know what that meant. But for me, it led me into taking the steps to first heal myself. So I was doing both things for a while. Okay. I was utilizing yoga and meditation and everything I was learning about my nervous system to combat this like deep depression and anxiety that was stemming really from my career and having made this choice to do something that felt safe and stable, but wasn't actually my passion or my purpose. And this is where I say I kind of saw a fork in the road. Like you can stay on the steady, stable, this is what you went to school for path and do this thing that you're doing every day for the next 60 years, or you can choose faith over fear. I didn't realize that's what I was doing at the time, and lean into this thing that you're feeling so passionate and called to, and this thing that's helping you so much. So like I said, I became 200-hour yoga trained and then 300-hour, all within a bit of time, like maybe 9 months of each other. And with everything that I was integrating into my own life and everything that I was studying around nervous system healing, I decided that I was going to leave nursing and I was going to enter the world of entrepreneurship. And my plan at that point was I wanted to help people heal their mind, body, and spirit through the mind-body connection, because what I was realizing through my studies and through my experience is that our mental and emotional health isn't just about our mental and emotional health. It's about our physical health. It's about our spiritual health. It is all one thing that is all interconnected. And in our Western world, I see for a lot of people, like yoga is the only entryway into that. There isn't a whole lot of talk in Western spaces, even our Western religious spaces, our Western spaces that are spiritual spaces, don't have this talk about that mind-body connection, and it's really, really important.
Yeah, 100%. So I love all of that, and I would just love for you, as much as you feel called and comfortable, is like share a little bit about that journey, that spiritual awakening. I know that's a really big question.
I know,
but
like how much can I fit in here?
Right. But I think it's important for people to know, like, this is all about the messy, the real, the raw. Like,
and it was fast and hard for me. So I left nursing at the end of 2021 and I entered into my entrepreneurial journey. And at that time, the entrepreneurial space the online space was exploding with manifestation and money mindset and personal development. And while I was deep into this mind-body connection, and I knew that that's what it was that I wanted to do to help people, I saw myself as a spiritual teacher. I saw myself as somebody who was going to help people heal more deeply than I could have done in the Western medicine space. But I was looking for people to help me understand how to build a business, and the online space at that point was completely wrapped in business is connected to manifestation. Business is connected to energetics. Business is connected to if you just see it and believe it and manifest it, then it'll come true and it'll happen for you. And what that did, that I'm so grateful for, and I see God in all of it, is God literally brought me into my spiritual walk through my deepest wound, which was the fear of not having enough, the fear of not being enough. And that process brought all that stuff up to the surface for me, right? Mm-hmm. Like, why aren't I doing it right? Why isn't it happening for me? Like, why is it happening for everybody else? What's wrong with me? And that went on for a few years as I was in this place of attempting to build a business alongside my spiritual practice that was actually also very much about my spiritual practice, right? It like all became this singular thing. And on the spiritual side of that, I was doing a lot of deep inner work. I was taking a long, deep look at my ancestral wounds, at the way that alcoholism had been passed down in my family, at the way that I had been raised, at the relationships I had had that created an imprint on my heart about the difficulty I had in receiving not only money, but love. That was the biggest thing for me. I had a really hard time receiving and actually believing that I was worthy of love. And my work in the spiritual space helped me to really soften and unload a lot of the ways that those things live inside of our bodies as human beings. And as that happened, I pretty quickly, I guess it was like, finally left nursing at the end of 2021 after doing this like ping pong for a long time. Anybody knows how travel nursing works. You can do a contract for 3 months and then you make enough money, you can take off for a good chunk of time. So I was doing that, like making the money I needed to make and then taking off and trying to figure out like, how am I going to make my transition out of here? At the end of 2021, I was on my last contract. I had taken a contract down in Austin, Texas, because I was trying to get pregnant, and nurses who were refusing the vaccine were starting to lose their jobs. There was only a few states left that you could keep your job and not be vaccinated. And I just had this internal gut feeling that along my journey of trying to get pregnant, for my whole body, it was just a no for me. I was not on board with being forced to do that to my body. And actually, this is a crazy story I didn't expect was going to come up. Before I went down for that contract, I was really wrestling with that decision. It was causing turmoil in my relationship with my brother. I was like, why am I making such a big deal out of this? Like, I've gotten every other vaccine. Like, I've gotten my flu shot every year since I've been a nurse. Why do I feel so convicted in this? And because it was becoming so difficult to get a contract, before I left for Texas, I was like, you know what? I give in. I'm just going to do it. And I made my appointment. I got in the car, and for the first time ever in my life, I was on a spiritual walk, but I was not a prayer. At this point, I was not saying the word God. I was in the car and out loud, I was like, whoever, whatever it is you are, help. If for whatever reason I am really not meant to get this vaccine, please put something in my way. And in my head, I'm thinking like traffic jam, or again, fender bender, make something happen so that I put something in my way if I'm not meant to get this vaccine, because I feel so serious about this, but I don't know why. And like, am I just being stubborn? I pull into the pharmacy. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm supposed to get it. I get out of my car. I walk into the pharmacy. I stand in line. There's 2 people before me. They take the person 2 ahead of me. They take the next person. It's my turn. The power goes out in the pharmacy. And the woman behind the desk is like, our computers are down. We can't give you your vaccine today. You're going to have to reschedule for another day. And I was like, nope. I asked for a sign and I got my sign, and I have full body chills.
I literally have goosebumps on my arm.
That's
right
when
now.
God re-entered my
That
psyche.
was literally my next question that I was going to ask you, is like, when did God come back on the scene? And it sounds like, boom, in that moment, because you reached out to something, right?
Outside of myself.
Outside of yourself, to be like, help. And
Yeah.
he answered.
Yeah. And now, that was prior to this contract. So now I go down to Austin. I'm allowed to start my contract. I'm on contract for, 7-8 weeks. I get pregnant. The next week. My contract tells me you have to get vaccinated or your contract's going to be canceled. Now, I had gone down to Texas because this was the one of the very last spaces that were still allowing it to be okay. I deny the vaccine. I lose my job. I have to move out of the apartment that we're staying in. The same week all that happens, I have a miscarriage. And that's when I fully surrendered into my spiritual path as being the only way for me to move forward in my life. It was in that time frame, somewhere, somehow, that I decided this is my last contract. I'm going to figure it out. I'm not going back. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to figure it out. And I realized in that moment, like I said, God was already there. I wasn't calling him by name. I wasn't calling out to him, but he was guiding the entire experience that I needed to come back home to him in a way that felt really true and authentic for me, and that I wasn't just taking on the beliefs or the doctrine or what somebody else told me I needed to be or say or do in order to be freed or find salvation. And those words, things like that, weren't even a thought in my mind at that point. 3 months after that, I go on my first all-women's healing retreat. And I had an incredibly, incredibly profound experience. Again, getting deeper into the things that have happened in my life that were keeping me from being able to receive love, were keeping me from being able to believe that I had what it took to actually build something of substance, build something of purpose, build something that I could put my whole heart and soul behind. Like, I was recognizing how much I had given up on the idea that I could have a dream and make that dream come true. At this time, I'm realizing that for so much of my life, like my teens through my early 20s, I literally believed that I was no one and nothing special. Like, I'm just going to have an ordinary status quo life. I'm not good enough to actually make anything I really want happen, right? Like, this is kind of taking it back a little bit, but when I went away to school, I really wanted to be a creative writer. But I chose nursing because it was safe and reliable and steady. And so at this point, I'm having that revelation. I'm like, everything that I have done in my life has been out of fear. Everything that I've done in my life has been from a place of I'm not good enough, or I'm not going to be able to make it. I'm not going to make enough money. I'm not going to be able to survive unless I take this logical, linear, straightforward path. And all of that's starting to disintegrate around me. 6 months later, I have a strong call to sit with ayahuasca. And now that's pretty quick.
Yeah.
Right? Like, my spiritual awakening, I'm going
In it.
My husband used to say to me, like, when you decide you're doing something, like, just balls deep.
Well, I
like,
literally was about to say balls deep, and I'm like, can I say balls deep on here?
We can say whatever we want. All right?
Both feet in. Yeah.
Both feet in. And again, it was a calling beyond my understanding. It was a pull that didn't necessarily make logical or linear sense. I tried to talk myself out of it so many times. Interestingly enough, I had been very, very interested for years prior to my spiritual awakening, watching documentaries, reading books, studying the power of plant medicine in healing, right? Because now I was an RN and I have this connection to, like, I'm meant to help people heal in a different way. Psychedelics are coming into modern medicine in a way. And I just had a knowing that there was something inside of me that I needed to touch into, and that this experience was going to help me do that. I didn't know what it was. Everybody kept asking me, like, what are you going for? Like, what is your intention? And I was like, I'll know when I get there. I don't know. And so I say yes. I go down to Costa Rica. I sit with ayahuasca. And maybe that'll be, I've said this so many times, I used to say this on the old podcast, like, I'll record a whole episode on that one day, and I haven't. And I really think it's taken me this long to fully integrate that experience. But within that experience, where that medicine took me was to my birth trauma. A story that I always knew, but from everybody else telling me, but I didn't remember. And I experienced how my unconscious was still holding on to the trauma of the day that I was born. And the day I was born, I had a near-death experience.
Oh, wow.
When I was born 3 weeks post-date. I had taken my first breath in utero. It's called meconium aspiratum, and I had inhaled the fluid from the womb, along with toxins and feces and that sort of thing. And within hours of being born, both of my lungs collapsed. I was a C-section. I was rushed away from my mom. She didn't have any hand to like
Skin to skin
skin-to-skin
touch, yeah.
contact for around 48 hours because it was a massive traumatic surgery for her as well. Wow. And she was completely sedated. They saved my life, but in this experience, I'm living through that experience. I'm feeling all of the IVs that are being put in, the breathing tube that's put down my throat, and having this, I get full body chills even talking about it, having this experience of like, oh my God, do I stay or do I go? Do I stay? Like, this is not how this was supposed to go. Like, where's my mom? Why isn't anybody choosing me? What's happening here? Like what? Like the fear. It's so visceral. Even like talking about it now, the fear of like, this isn't what this was supposed to be. This isn't safe. It's not safe for me to be alive. And I felt that choice point of like, I don't want it, like trying to go back and God being like, no, like there's something you have to do here. You have to stay. You have to stay in your body. And that broke me. Like, my nervous system broke, my psyche broke. And that, I think, is the danger of Westerners without a deep understanding of their nervous system and the reality of what plant medicine is going to like touch you into. That's where it becomes dangerous, right? And the reality, I also see now that we are like ripping open into the spiritual realm. Yeah. So I had that experience, and it brought to the surface all of that. The fact that from the day I was born, I've been afraid to be alive, right? And that feeling that nobody's choosing me, nobody's coming for me, right? Creating a disconnect with my parents for my whole life of like, because I didn't get that immediate love, like I wasn't born into that immediate love. It was there, right? They loved me, but it wasn't able to be right there. I was born into cold hands and surgical masks and feeling so freezing cold. I remember in that experience feeling like my feet were so frozen, and like every hand that was touching me felt so like cold and distant, and I could go on and on and on about that. But the next, I was going to say 6 months, but like 4 years, honestly, has been an integration of that. Wow. I came home from that experience, and I went through a huge purge of like just emoting and emoting and emoting and emoting, spending days like in the bathtub just crying and allowing all of that had been with me since the day I was born, and then built up over time, because these things that we go through, they create imprints in our psyche and in our system that cause us to continue to live inside of that perspective and those projections. So you're constantly acquiring evidence as to like why it's not safe for me to be alive. So now I have a lifetime of fear and grief, and I'm not enough, and it's not enough, and it's not safe living in my body. And I spent the next 6 months really processing all of that. And at the same time, because the reality is plant medicine doesn't just touch us into our own psyches and our own soma, it's also opening up the spiritual realm. I'm having spiritual gifts starting to flood me as well. All of a sudden, I am able to more deeply feel the energy of somebody else in a room. I'm more deeply able to see in the spiritual realm. My meditation practice gets very, 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 very vivid. I'm having conversations with people, and I'm just having full knowings about exactly like things that need to be said to them. I'm going to the grocery store, and people's like dead ancestors are tapping me on the shoulder and asking me to go tell them things about them.
Oh my gosh.
So
wait, what?
I thought that I had like royally ruined myself. I looked back at that experience and was like, wow, I found this really profound seed and root of something that was causing a lot of pain in my life. But now all this is happening, and like, I didn't bargain for all that.
Right. How did you navigate that?
I thought for a while that I had done some like undoable. That's not the word I'm looking for, but like damage,
Irreversible
right? Irreversible
damage.
damage. That I'm like, oh boy.
I
okay.
can't even imagine.
I thankfully, by the grace of God, I know it to be true. I found a mentor in the space who was deeply connected to somatic healing and trauma healing and moving through pain, and the reality that when we do that, we are opening our hearts and our bodies more up to what I now know is God and love, right? And when we open ourselves, I'll name this in a way from like the Christian understanding, when we open ourselves up to the love of God, spiritual gifts come online. Like it's written in the Bible, right? So thank God, I within a few months, I found a mentor who could help me really ground and understand some of these things. But the nature of the way that we were working together was more so, again, fully connecting to the body and somatics and embodiment to move through the things that were happening and be able to ground the energy that was, it felt like very ungrounded. So she taught me how to work with that instead of just being wide open all the time. She taught me how to understand how to use it in a way, if that makes sense. And in that experience with her is the first time that I don't want to say experienced God, right? Because we've already named some stories where I experienced God, started to understand God. I had a moment with her in one of those somatic processes. This is no psychedelic medicine. On a Wednesday in my bedroom, she's leading me through just being safe inside of my body, breathing, moving my body, and allowing energy to move. And within that process, I had my eyes closed and I was having a really hard time. It was feeling really heavy. It was feeling really dark. And I was having a hard time surrendering to it. Like I was trying to like muscle my way through the process almost, while simultaneously resisting of like, I can't go that deep. I don't know how to really explain that in like words that are gonna fully land. But without me even trying, and all of a sudden, all in a moment, I surrender and a vision opens up of a kingdom. I see and feel for the first time ever in my body the truth of oneness, that we are all one, that I am in him and you are in me, right? I didn't understand that to be what it was at the time, but I find it so interesting that it was a kingdom, a vision of a kingdom, and I am walking through, it's like a huge celebration. There's people all over the place. And as I'm walking through and looking eye to eye with these different people, there is no separation between us. Like there only is the unconditional love of God. And I am feeling through every cell in my being, like, I understand God. I get it. I get God. And in that moment, I went from saying God, source, universe, whatever it is that you want to call it, it doesn't matter, to like, no, it's God.
It's God.
100% it's God.
That gave me full body chills. Because my next question I was leading into is like, you know, you're building this business online, you're doing, you know, like in the healing space, you're having clients navigating this and stuff. And like, I know in some other episodes we've talked about like still that doing it alone. So I guess my next question is what happened or what led to, or when did you get to the space of like that surrender we talk about of like, okay, I can't muscle through this any longer on my own. I don't want to on my own. Like, was there a moment, and maybe there wasn't, I don't know, but was there that space for you?
Yeah. So this is where my story gets a little bit dark for a moment. After having that experience of opening up to God, maybe it was like time is funny, but a couple weeks later, I come home from work. I was working at a restaurant at the time to help support the building of my business. I come home from work. It's like 11 p.m. I get into bed. My husband's already asleep. And I kind of like gently shake him awake. And I was like, I don't know what's happening for me right now, but I feel terrified. I'm terrified. And he's like, okay, like you're probably just exhausted. Just lay down, like sleepily trying to be like, you're okay, it's fine. Like, and I couldn't express to him like the bigness of what was happening for me. But then all of a sudden, I am in a full visceral somatic remembrance of childhood sexual trauma. Of something that happened to me over the course of a few years when I was a little girl. And it became a full knowing, a full understanding, bits and pieces of being able to kind of like see certain memories, auditorily hearing like things that had been said to me at that time. And my body is processing this as if it's happening right now. So I am screaming, I want my mom, I want my mom, I want my mom. I'm pushing my husband away from me as if he's the thing that's attacking me. And I'm like half here in my room and understanding like that this isn't real, but half in this memory now that's coming up inside of my body. And the next year, 2 years, that was in 2023, we're in 2025. Ever since then, it's been a deep dive into healing that. Alongside of that, my husband and I have been trying to get pregnant for 4.5 years. And everything that I am trying in business isn't working. We're having financial struggles, right? And I can look back in hindsight and God has always shown up in like we have never gone without, but we have always been like, how are we going to make this happen? How are we going to be okay? And we've always been okay by the grace of God. Thank you, God. But in that process, I tried for another, I'd say, year almost to do it on my own, to do it my way, to do it through the lens of energy healing. And if I can just go into this enough times, and if I can just get to the root of it and get to the root of it and get to the root of it, I'll be okay. I'll be able to excavate it fully from my body. And now I understand also a bit in the ways that the darkness in the spiritual realm or demonics do work is that like they plug into these places where wounds are. So I'm going in on a near daily basis, picking at this wound, picking, and like leaving this open door for darker energies, entities to be like torturing me, honestly. I was having, not every single night, but very often, panic attacks and being pulled back into that memory, right? Which I understand is both CPTSD, right? That's a very real thing that we need to talk about that I take a lot of issue with inside of everything being called demonic, right? Because there is a real reality to our nervous systems and our psyches and the things that our body does and the way it processes once it's experienced such a depth of trauma as this. And I think that's really important to land here. And having been an energy healer and seeing in the spiritual realms, I understand that there are also darknesses that plug into these places and like amplify that times 10. And so I spent the next year really trying to do it on my own, using every tool that I had, every understanding that I had, reaching out to healers and a therapist and making amazing progress. I mean, I went into EMDR therapy and that changed my life. But at the same time, while this is happening, Jesus starts to chase me, like really chase me. And interestingly enough, I didn't talk a whole lot about like the healing work, right? But now I'm working in the space as an energy healer. I'm working in the space helping people process through somatic, traumatic memories inside of their bodies, and I'm utilizing the spiritual gifts that I've opened up to do that, right? I'm speaking in the spirit, but I'm calling it light language. I'm laying hands, right? But I didn't recognize that these things were the same thing. So I'm just using the verbiage that I'm hearing in the modern world around what it is that I'm doing. And as I am working in that space, the only guide that's there is Jesus. And I'm like, this is weird. Sometimes I would feel connected to Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary, but it was always only these Christian figureheads, right, that are showing up for me. And I'm feeling like that's wrong. Like I should have more guides. I should have more things coming through. I'm speaking in, again, what I was calling light language, I understand now is tongues, and people in the more new age spiritual space are like, oh, who are you channeling? Like, what are you channeling? Because a lot of what they believe in and connect to is like alien beings or ancient other gods and goddesses and things like that. And I felt embarrassed that I would be like, it's just God. Like, is that okay? Can I just say God? Like, it's just God. And so Jesus is here the whole time, but I'm not naming and claiming him, right? I started getting a strong call to buy a Bible. So I did that, but I had this resistance to it. It's like I'm dipping in and then being like, I don't know about all that. I don't know if I can trust it. I don't know who wrote that, who put it together, right? I'm wanting to look into the history of like, how was this thing actually put together? And I also have a huge resistance to the evolution of the church and things that have happened inside of that space in the name of Jesus, right? Like things that have been very traumatic and oppressive to different kinds of people. And so I have a deep resistance to Jesus because I'm lumping him in with the church and the distortion that has come into those spaces by men, or by man, not just men. And still he's there. He's just there, just waiting. I'm starting to have moments of like, I don't know why, but I'm turning on worship music and I'm sobbing and my hands are in the air and I'm out loud saying, Jesus is my Lord and Savior. Jesus is my Lord and Savior. But as I'm doing that, I'm like, what is that?
What is going on
What
here?
is that? What is that?
Oh.
No.
Now, was that like super jarring to your nervous system, or did it feel like a coming home or like a centering? How was it received?
In the moment, it would feel very like peaceful, overwhelming, right? Like when you're like receiving the Holy Spirit, like definitely overwhelming. But I had such a resistance. I had such a resistance because of my internal understanding or belief that if I surrender to Jesus, I'd become a Christian and then I'm going to be judgmental and shame spewing and all of these things that I was placing judgment on inside of the church, right? And not without grounding that exists inside of the church. And so, yeah, I'm strong arming him the whole time that he's here and he's working through me. And he's the thing he is the one giving me the gifts that I'm utilizing to help other people in their homecoming. And actually, really funny, inside of that, I offer a program last summer to help women who are having these massive awakenings to spiritual gifts and aren't understanding them. And it feels distorting and confusing. And you get this like, excuse me, am I losing my mind? Like, that's a really real thing that people who are experiencing this deal with. And I have this experience where I'm like, okay, this is going to be fully guided, right? I'm calling it like it's a fully channeled experience. Like I'm just going to let God move through whatever has to come. I'm not planning anything out. I'm not creating like a curriculum. I have certain things that I know I want to teach them around like safety and hygiene and prayer and all of that. But the first thing that comes through is like, Jesus. You have to talk about Jesus. If you're going to be teaching people how to heal, you have to bring Jesus into it.
Did your butthole clench?
I was like, nah.
Nah, dude.
I just had a bunch of women who are developing psychics pay me to come in, and Jesus is like, talk about me. Oof. And again, it is my own fear, my own judgment, my own projection that I'm like, everybody's going to think, people are going to get scared because I was scared. People are going to push it away because I was pushing it away. People are going to like not want to listen to me because I didn't want to listen to him. And I listened. I bring it in. It's the first thing we're talking about. It opens up a beautiful conversation. And now I go through a big period of God. I wasn't naming him Jesus yet at the time, which is so interesting because it's like, yes, God, and Jesus is right here, and I'm like, you stay there. And God, this is where my daily conversations with God begin to happen. He's convicting me to like put everything else aside, like stop your practices, stop everything. And I'm not getting convicted and because it's all wrong and bad and it's opening doors to negative things. It's like because I want you to know me. I want you to know me, like just me and you for a while. Let it just be me and you. And I am guided to join an ordination program. In the ordination program I joined is called Feminine Healing Ministries, and it did a really beautiful job of walking women who have awakened through this more feminine lens of mysticism, through deconstruction, religious deconstruction, to be able to reclaim and name and come home to God. And that was so profound in my walk, because that's where my daily conversations with God turned into a daily devotional prayer practice. And now I am praying every day. I'm opening my Bible more. I'm allowing it in. I'm allowing it in, and I'm so afraid. I'm afraid of that if I say yes and I lean in and I surrender, that it means that everything that I have walked through is wrong and bad, that I am wrong and bad for where I've come from, right? Because something that's kind of different and makes me a little nervous about my testimony is that you see everywhere people talk about like new age to Jesus, or having been in the psychic world to Jesus, and like saying like all of that is demonic, and I don't feel that way. I do see how it opens the doors to the demonic, right? And it can open us up to things that we are not equipped to deal with without Jesus, right? Like we don't have the strength to be the thing that sends demons out, right? Without him. And I recognize that now in my healing work. But I was really afraid of almost letting go of who I was and what I had come to believe and the things that I had experienced by saying yes to fully surrendering in to him. And to bring it back to your question of like, when did you finally surrender? My husband and I hit a point inside of our fertility journey where every single month I am in absolute despair. Every single month I'm like, I've tried everything. I've worked with holistic doctors. I've gone on every holistic hormonal like protocol that you can be on. I've taken every single supplement. I have done it all. I've been on every crazy diet. I have like literally turned my entire life into a science experiment. And it's not working. It's not happening for us. And the longer it goes on, the more we want it and the harder it gets to hold the faith that it is going to happen for us. But simultaneously at the same time, because God is so good and works in such beautiful ways, as this thing that is happening in my life that would cause you to lose your faith, I'm on this deep walk of like deeply, deeply strengthening my faith. Right now, God is the center of every day. And it goes from something that I am doing in my life to something my husband and I are doing together. We're praying together over our life, over our finances, over my womb, over our fertility, and also surrendering to, we just need to live our lives and be so grateful for the beauty of everything that we have, and trust that God knows better. God's timing is better, right? And it became a very natural evolution that all of a sudden one day I turned to him and I was like, I really want to go to church. I really want to go to church. And so we go to church. I found a beautiful church. And immediately I walk into that space, and the first part of the service is worship music, and I am moved to tears, like hands up in the air, hysterically crying and feeling this like, I'm home. Oh, I'm home. Like I don't have to keep searching and seeking and fighting. I'm home. And something I haven't named in this is that something that would come up for me very often in my spiritual work is that feeling of like, I just want to go home. I want to go home. I want to go home. I would say to my husband, like, it's not a like full on like suicidal ideation, but it's like, I don't want to be here. I want to go home, but I don't know what home is. And I walk into that church and I have my hands up in the air and they're playing worship music and I'm hysterically crying, and I feel for the first time like, oh, I'm home. I get it. Like, okay. And from that moment, again, it's just been a natural evolution of like allowing him more and more and more into every aspect of my life. Deep contemplation and recognition coming full circle to like, I've been praying to God. I've been on a walk with God. Jesus is right here. And like, oh, Jesus is God.
Hallelujah. We got it.
Got it.
No, but I just love, and I've heard your story, and every time I'm still like leaning in deeper because it's so beautiful and it does really lay out how messy, right, and tumultuous that journey can be, and how God will use every single moment of our life to bring us back. And like we're never too far gone, and like he's there with us the whole time and using every single experience to point us back, to bring us back home.
Yeah.
And your story, your testimony is just like a beautiful demonstration, illustration of that.
Yeah. And I'm still in a season of like him doing so much work in my life, but I will say there is a peace and a surrender. There is a certainty. There is a joy.
Yeah.
There is a, I don't know, I could just keep spewing words, but that I didn't have when I was in the space of trying to do all of the healing work on my own, around that concept that I previously believed that if I could heal hard enough, I would ascend into this place where I am always one with God, right? That I am fully living in that space. And that's a lot of pressure. And I see the degree of distortion where that can keep us addicted to the healing, the suffering, the what's wrong with me, what more do I need to fix, what more do I need to do, what other shadow do I have to look at? And what I have personally found in just surrendering that over to Jesus is it's an immediate return to peace, right? My pains will still come up and I just talk to him and it goes away. I have moments still to this day. I mean, thank you, God. It's been months since I've had like a full-blown CPTSD episode, but I'll have moments where I start to like feel that energy in my body a little bit and I just begin to pray and it goes away. And that has been the most powerful shift for me in saying yes and surrendering fully in is the simplicity. That it gets to be so simple and I get to just be a human and I get to enjoy this life that he has gifted me instead of constantly feeling like I need to endlessly figure it out. Yeah.
Already whole.
Already whole in the gift of being human.
Yeah.
Like I believe that there will come a time when we pass out of this life that we get to go fully back home to God, and that's not what the human experience was made for. So, like I said, he's still doing so much with me in my life and surrendering over this business, my finances, my fertility. And I think that that's such a beautiful piece of it, right? It's not like just immediate answered prayers just because I said yes to Jesus, but it's a near immediate sense of peace in just trusting and knowing and getting to actually enjoy the ride of allowing it all to unfold and allowing it all to unfold with and in him instead of in this like opposition to or fighting against him.
Yeah. Jesus, the ultimate co-creator.
I had a friend of mine who went through a similar journey about a year ago. We were very much on the same path of like healing and in the medicine space and all of that. And we've been a lot in contact recently as I've stepped 2 feet in. And I just keep saying to her, like, the peace, like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. I mean, everything's changed, but nothing's changed. And I just feel such a sense of peace. And she's like, yeah, the King of Peace will do that to you.
Yeah. How about it?
How about it?
I love that.
Amen. Thank you, Jesus.
Yes. Well, I'm so glad that we got this opportunity to sit down. Your story never gets old for me. I love to hear it. And just as someone sitting across from you, even as your friend, it's been so beautiful to witness the unfolding and the journey and seeing in real time how it's impacting you and how you're showing up. It's so inspiring because there are so elements of my journey where I still feel so crunchy and I'll message you and immediately like God comes through you to speak to me. And that's what God does, right? He allows us to be the conduit. as we land in that peace, we get to share that opportunity and that experience with other people through our words and how we show up and hold the space. And you've just been such a beautiful inspiration in that. So
thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Guys, I hope you found, some value here. I know you did. And if you didn't, that's really weird. But in all seriousness, if you have any other questions for Molly about her journey, feel free to drop them in the comments. Let us know. Reach out to us.
We'll work them into another episode.
Yeah, we're happy. We want to be open books here and really support you in your journey of coming home and what that looks like and what that feels like. And no question is, off base for us.
And my prayer here is just, I always say this after I share parts of my story, is come to my story, come to anyone who's willing to share their story of walking home to God with a sense of humility, with a sense of openness, with a sense of love and understanding and recognition that we are all just humans helping to walk each other home. And I am not claiming to be perfect, and I am so willing for God to convict me in things that He has not yet convicted me in, but I'm very committed to that being my journey, to not becoming convicted in something just because someone else says that that's the right way to be a Christian. I'm still brand new in this. I'm walking with new eyes and with a new heart. And I trust that God, because He always has been, Jesus, because He always has been, will be the thing who shows me what it is that I need to see on my journey, in being deeper and deeper and deeper in the creation of my life in Him. Right?
So good.
Yeah. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. God's got it, guys. We'll see you next time. Okay, guys, that's a wrap. If today's episode spoke to you, please let us know. Leave us a comment or reach out via email.
If you know someone who would benefit from this message, please take a moment to share it with them, and make sure to hit the subscribe so that you never miss an episode.
Thanks for spending time with us today. We hope you leave here reminded that whatever season you're in right now, God's got it.